All right. So today we've got a great guest on the show and a really important conversation because we're going to be talking about building inspections today, which to me is a critical part of the home purchase process. When you're looking at buying an asset that's worth 500,000 to several $1 million, I think you really want to do your due diligence, and getting a good quality building and pest inspector to do the job and give you a detailed report is a really fundamental part of the process for me. And so to that point, we've got a great guest. We've got Drew Woods from 8 Point Building Inspection. So Drew, g'day mate. Welcome to the show.
Michael, thanks for having me on.
Mate, pleasure to have you here. So you've been dealing with you guys for a little while, and your lovely wife, Brooke, who's in the networking group that I'm a part of. But for the listeners that are out there, can you just tell us a little bit about your business and how you got into the building and pest inspection game?
Yeah, no worries. So, yeah, I got into the building inspection game 10 years ago. I actually bought a gyms franchise and sort of got into it that way. The gyms franchise I thought was a good way to go because there's no real sort of training out there, and at least with gyms you got some sort of training. You got to know a good network of guys, people to bounce stuff off. But yeah, I guess I lasted a couple of years, 3 years there, and then I got rid of the franchise and just sort of did my own thing. So it was a good learning curve. And yeah, the best thing about doing the gyms thing was the network of the guys that now are all work with us. So then I know they're all trained and all the rest of it. So yeah, it's sort of before that, been in the building industry for quite a while. Started off as a sparky back in my early days when I left school, and then got into the building sort of side of things. So yeah, it's been a bit of a journey with doing the building inspections, but it's learned a lot along the way, and now we've got a great business where Brooke the boss, she runs the business. She keeps all us guys in check and does everything. So it makes my life a lot easier these days. So
yeah. And you started on your own a few years ago, and you've built out a team of contractors that you use now to go out and do the building and pest inspections?
Yeah, absolutely. It all sort of happened pretty organically, actually. We've got a lot of really good close clients that we work with, a lot of buyers advocates, a lot of mortgage brokers, conveyancers, all the rest of it. So yeah, we're just generating enough business to then start feeding it out, and sort of get our guys in and train them up a little bit more, bring them up to our standard, which is I think is a pretty high standard, and make sure we're all on the same page, and they've really enjoyed the process as well because they've learned a lot along the way from myself. So yeah, got a really good team now, and just coming into the new year, I'm training up 2 more guys at the moment, so ready for the year ahead.
Yeah, brilliant. And what sort of areas do you service?
We pretty much go all Melbourne suburbs. We do venture down to Geelong and places like that sometimes, but down the peninsula, all the rest of it, we can sort of go everywhere. We're sort of the good thing because we've got a network of guys. They're sort of living around the area, and if you've got 2 Brooks, very good at if they've got to go to the other side of the city or somewhere a bit more rural, then she sort of organises 2 jobs for them or for me, and makes it worth the while. But yeah, we go kind of pretty much all areas.
Yeah, good to know. All right, so I guess most of the work that we've sort of done together when I've referred a client over is for a pre-purchase building inspection. Now, I know you do a range of other types of inspections, and we might touch on those a little bit towards the end. But I imagine that's probably the most common type of inspection that you would do throughout your business. And can you talk us through a little bit about that process? So when a client does engage you, they're looking to buy a house, and then they want a building and pest completed. What's that process look like, and what are you looking for when you go through that process?
Absolutely, yeah. Building and pest, termite and pest inspections are by far the most common inspections we do. So from when our clients contact us, they normally contact Brooke. Brooke gives them a bit of a run through of what's involved in the inspection, gives them a bit of a quote online of what it's going to cost. Obviously, different size houses and units and all that. We've got different costings, but once you sort of gauge us, we make contact with the agent to get access. When we go do the inspection, the job I did this morning was quite a good job to go on. It was a job over in Carlton. building and
Yep.
pest inspection, terrace house, and I found what did I find? Three major defects on this property.
Yep.
And didn't find any termites or anything like that, but there was some major defects, ranging from leaky bathroom, which I found with the moisture meter, putting the moisture meter on the walls, had rising damp through the property. It also had the ground levels all around the exterior all up way too high on the wall, so the ground levels on the exterior were higher than the internal flooring. So when I ran my moisture meter around the base part of the wall, there was moisture all on the plasterboard, 100% moisture. So it was a bit of a doozy, that one. And when you find things like that, you've got to sort of go, okay, what's going on? What's happening on the inside of the wall? But after I did the inspection today, I gave my clients a call straight away while everyone's fresh on the mind, just to give them a bit of a verbal run through, which is a really important part of our business and what we do. Building inspection reports, can come across quite scary to people if they're not, if they don't know the terminology. We have to write reports to an Australian standard, so that's major defect. Highly advise this, highly advise that, major defect on the leaky bathroom. And it can really sort of blow people's minds because they're like, what does this all mean, sort of thing. So the verbal
Yeah.
run through.
Because I guess for the layman, they're not really sure of the severity, in some degree. Like I imagine most houses, particularly existing houses, have some level of compromise to them. There's some sort of defect, and it's just a matter of, how big is the risk and can you live with that risk? And is that something that you help your clients sort of guide them through a bit?
100%, yeah. So I always like to find out from the client what their intentions are. They wanted to do a renovation, in 5 years' time, 2 years' time. They just want a house they don't spend any money on, because it makes a big difference. So the client today, particularly, she was an older lady, so she just didn't want to spend any money. So, leaky bathrooms is probably the most common defect I find, but they can be band-aided up for a while, so you can get an extra year or 2 years out of them, which makes a big difference. On the report, it says major defect, has to be, has to be repaired immediately by a registered building practitioner. When sometimes in reality that, you can get a sealant specialist in there and they can seal it up and you can get a bit more life out of it. So I guess,
so if it's an old bathroom that you're intending on renovating anyway, because the new purchasers don't like the look of it, then that's something they can live with for a few months.
Absolutely.
And horses for courses kind of
absolutely,
scenario.
yeah. So that's why the phone call, and I'd spend half an hour to sometimes 45 minutes, even an hour with clients on the phone, just sort of talking them through what the defects actually mean. A big question I always get is, how much is this going to cost? Or, can you give me a rough figure? And we've got a bit of a ballpark figure what we can give with, a new bathroom. On our reports, we have a trades list that we send out to all our clients. And I work closely with those trades. So, for instance, there was some rising damp in this property. I had a chat to the rising damp contractor just before Christmas and said, "Have your prices changed? What's different?" And I can give a bit of a ballpark figure over the phone, of what what things are going to sort of add up to. But I always give them the trades contacts, so they can reach out to them as well and get a bit more of a better figure on it. So yeah, I guess after and then from that we get the report to them with we say 24 hours just to give us a bit of time, but normally it's that same day, just while everything's fresh in our mind.
Right.
Yeah.
And from what previous conversations, I mean, you're pretty extensive with the inspections, like trying to get under the house, in the roof, wherever you possibly can, to identify every possible defect that you possibly can.
Absolutely, yeah. So getting into the subfloor is pretty key if there's a subfloor. Today, unfortunately, I couldn't get in there. There was no subfloor access, but I was able to shine my torch through the air vents, and it's pretty amazing. Even though you can't get into the subfloor, one I could see it was on concrete stumps, which is good. But I could also see on the side of the concrete stump there was water staining, so it sort of told me that during winter the subfloor floods a little bit. Also leaning up against the against the house and getting down on your hands and knees and looking through the air vents, I've got a a bit of a smell of mustiness. So I could sort of tell that even though I couldn't see it, it is quite damp under there in certain areas. So, but yeah, absolutely. If there's access to the subfloor, we sort of squeeze in there to have a good look around. It's really important from a termite perspective as well. Termites you often see visually in the subfloor before you see them visually in the subfloor before you sort of can sort of tap
Yeah.
around and sort of find them out with the moisture meter or thermal camera.
Yeah.
So yeah, and you also look at things like if there's heating ducts, if they've separated, we put those things in the report. So yeah, and inside the roof space, again, that's pretty important just to see what's going on up there. Sometimes we see split timbers, things like insulation. Because I was a Sparky in my early days, I'm always putting a comment in there if I see some old electrical wiring or some safety hazards, so they all go in there. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, very comprehensive
Mhm.
report. So I mentioned you find us a whole range of potential defects, ranging in severity with most properties. Like, what are the most typical types of defects or items that you would call out on a report for a typical house?
Um, yeah, I guess leaky bathrooms is really common. That's
Just not sealed properly around
yeah,
the
and just
shower,
just
and
not
that's
maintained. It's a lot of bathrooms these days have the level entry tiled flooring,
yeah,
which look really nice aesthetically and all the rest of it. But on a house that moves around a bit, particularly if it's on a sort of clay based sort of soil, they often crack over time because the houses always move around, the stumps are moving up and down. So yeah, it's kind of the style of bathroom.
better take notes here,
Yeah,
mate, just while you're going, because we did get a level tiled bathroom in a renovation a couple of years ago.
that's
So
it.
I'll keep an eye on it.
Absolutely. Or you can get like solid bases that now sit under the tiles. So it's like a
Yeah,
solid base what you see in a shower, but it sort of sits below the level, the floor level. So,
gotcha. Yeah,
but yeah, I guess the other thing that I find on a lot of properties is site drainage. It's pretty important, if you're looking to buy a house, when you're walking around the yard, just sort of imagine what it's going to be like when there's a big downpour and just sort of see where the water runs. Water pooling against a
yeah,
house, it causes cracking. It can put water into the subfloor. So site drainage is a pretty important one, and it's pretty common on properties that people don't sort of think about it too much, or don't think about the consequences of water resting against the property or water getting into a subfloor. So yeah, site drainage is a big one. But yeah, I guess weatherboard homes. There's always wood rot around and all the rest of it. And little any kind of the terrace type of properties. Rising damps are really common as well. So
yeah,
which
yeah.
everything can be fixed, rectified. But again, things like rising damp, it's interesting. A lot of people don't like rising damp, not so much from the building defect point of view, but because it can put a bit of mold in the property, puts a bit of moisture in the air.
Right.
So it can come down to that as well.
Yeah, I guess that can potentially have some health issues down the track as well.
Yeah,
There's too much damp.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. But yeah, a lot of plumbing defects as well. Gutters,
Yep.
all the rest of it. It's pretty amazing. Like a lot of our reports, we put things like the gutters need to be clean from a maintenance point of view. So you end up with a bit of a maintenance list. People just think,
Yeah.
the gutters, not that important. But again, I think probably 99% of the reports I do, the gutters they've got debris in them and sort of overflowing a little bit. So, and again, it's that water overflowing, resting against the house sort of thing. So, but yeah, there's a lot
Yeah.
of maintenance defects we put in the report,
Gotcha.
just as
Yeah.
minor.
Yeah. So water is typically one of the biggest killers then. And what about like pests? Are termites a big issue? Is that's probably the number one on the pest side of
100%.
things?
Yeah, absolutely. So depending on the area, all down the peninsula or that way, there's a lot of termites in those areas or sort of leafy suburbs. So yeah, termites are probably the hardest one for a building inspector to find. They're amazing little creatures. They can get into a house completely undetected. And people go, "Oh, my house is on a slab," and slabs are more susceptible to termites. They
Oh,
can
right.
actually get in
Okay.
a lot
Yeah.
easier, only through little cracks. If weed poles, garden beds are built up against the property, then they cover what's called the weed poles around the base of the brickwork. So yeah, termites, oh, they still amaze me to this day. The damage they can do, or the different timbers they eat. I've seen them eat MDF board or chipboard. They're not too fussed if they're hungry enough, and they'll eat hardwood, softwood,
Yep.
everything. So, but yeah,
Yep. Determine little
yeah, and
buggies. Yep.
sometimes they will just touch the internal parts of the walls. They won't touch any existing timber. We tap around all the skirting boards and check for moisture and door frames and all the rest of it. And sometimes they'll only just go for the internal parts of the walls, which I've experienced in the past. Completely
Right. So I guess the only way to find that is if you rip the wall open, take the plaster off, and
100%. Yeah, absolutely. It's normally when you do a renovation is when you find termites. And
yeah,
yeah, and most of the time, I would say probably 90% of termite damage I find is old and inactive. So when it's old and inactive, they don't produce any moisture, heat, sound. So, the checks that we do, they can still go undetected. So they're a bit scary, the old termites, but yeah, it's just, I suppose, educating our clients again. Over the phone is an important thing as well, especially if they're buying a
yep,
house, in these leafy suburbs, just to educate them on getting the termite treatment done, because they can come along at any time.
yeah, yep. Oh, there you go. And imagine, because there's a whole range of different types of dwellings that are out there, and you've got your freestanding houses and townhouses and units, but then you've got apartments, and there's some, I guess, some of the smaller apartment buildings, that the old school ones where there might be half a dozen or so apartments in the block, through to high rise apartment towers and things like that. So, how does the process of an inspection change dramatically? And I guess where I'm getting at is, I get quite a few first home buyers that could probably only afford an
Hmm.
apartment, because it's more an entry level type of property, and often they're a little more reluctant to spend a couple of dollars on a building and pest
Hmm.
inspection. But I imagine for the particularly older apartments and potentially new ones, there's been a lot of defects on some newer apartments as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just critical. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Apartments, yeah. The process of doing the inspection is the same. We still do all the moisture checks, the thermal checks, all the rest of it. The
Yeah.
thing is with apartments is a lot of them have balconies, and balconies are pretty problematic as well. They're a bit like showers, sort of that wet area where there's a bit more movement on balcony, especially tiled balconies with the heat of the sun as well, because it can move tiles around a little bit. So yeah,
Right.
just a big part of an apartment is balconies, and just checking to make sure there's no moisture coming from the apartment above as well. So, but also a big part of the sort of apartment inspections is just to make sure they've spoken to their conveyancer or solicitor, and they've got all the information, what's in the body corporate notes, and they can give that information to us as well. We're a bit restricted when it comes to apartments, because we're only sort of supposed to look at the apartment itself and the car park or the storage. We're not looking at the whole structure. Um,
Building structure.
that's why it's
Yeah.
important to
Yeah.
find out. In saying that, I always do a lap around just to have a look around, see if I notice anything, big major cracking down the other end of the block, just to say, hey, was this noted in the meetings minutes, sort of thing. You can always tell when you're on apartments as well, if the drainage has been done. There's always the concrete cuts. You can always look up to see if the new flashings and things like that. So we're only reporting and in our reports on the apartment itself. And termites are not as prevalent in apartments. In saying that, I have found them a couple of times. But yeah, the rest
Yeah.
of the process is the same. And again, leaky bathrooms is a really common defect on apartments.
Yeah, yeah. I had a friend. She was in an apartment in Port Melbourne, and they actually had a tap, little connector that was meant to go to her fridge that was actually never turned on, never connected, never meant to be used. But apparently that was leaking behind the fridge, and
Wow.
she only found out about it when the neighbour started complaining that there was a bit of water, I think, coming down into their kitchen, and her whole floorboards and everything were completely ruined by that
Hmm.
stage. It was a major, major fix up, but yeah, unless and so I guess a lot of people probably think that they're buying an apartment, there's not too much that can go wrong because it's only a small type of dwelling.
Yeah,
But when you do get water flowing down from the apartment above, it can cause major damage and
100%.
can be pretty expensive, but also a very lengthy process to get that fixed. I think she was out there for months. It took way longer than it possibly
Yeah,
should have.
absolutely. You're sort of dealing with the rest of them. I had a job just before Christmas on an apartment, and it was a metal sort of framed property, and it was the middle
Yep.
apartment, and the big I beams that sort of went from floor to ceiling throughout the apartments on the balcony, they were about 40% rusted out. So that was a major structural, big safety hazard as well, especially from the apartment above. So that was a bit of a doozy, that one. But yes, but water's the main thing that does come into play.
Sounds like it's the most common killer for all types of houses and for your inspections.
100%.
Apart from maybe this one, so a lot of a lot of clients, obviously will want to build a new house as well. They might do a knockdown and rebuild, or they'll buy a brand new building and a house on land type of package, things like that. So you do a few inspections, whether it's a new building inspection or also, I believe, throughout the construction phase, if someone is building a new dwelling. You can do sort of multiple inspections at every stage of the construction. Can you just elaborate a little bit on those types of inspections that you do?
Absolutely. Excuse me. Absolutely. It's becoming quite a popular inspection. A lot of it's due to, I don't know if you've heard of the TikTok inspector or seen any of the footage that he does.
I've seen him. Yeah,
so he's actually brought a lot of light to the industry on new construction. We're always doing new construction inspections, but a lot of the time it was mostly handover inspections at the end of the process. So, which is better than nothing. And then we would write the report, put all the defects in there, and it's not like major minor defects on new construction. It's done to Australian standards, non-compliant, all the rest of it. But now we're doing. Last year we picked up a lot of stage inspections, right from the slab. Go in there, do a slab inspection, frame, check all the frame, lock, pre-plaster sort of inspection, lock up, and then hand over. And it actually works really well. Our guys build quite a good relationship with the builder. At the start, sometimes the builder can be a bit shirty because he thinks he's got someone.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can imagine it's like someone judging their work, which some may not be appreciative of.
Absolutely. So it's pretty important to build that relationship, and in the end, most of the time, the builders are happy to get the report because we're sort of helping them, and then they give the report to the subbies, and they go, "You got to fix up X, Y, and Z." And the end result is way better. Like some of the at handover stage, some of the defects you find, you almost have to sort of start again. Like one recently was our guy went in there and he noticed straight away that the ceiling wasn't to the right height. So that was a massive defect. So, but yeah,
that must be overlooked. There is a building inspector that's that has to come out sort of other than the building pest that's authorised by the client. There is an inspector that has to come around and sign off on all the work there legally. So they're just doing too quick a job and not paying enough attention to detail, are they? In some
yeah, probably. The surveyors are supposed to sign off on all these issues and all the rest of it. So a lot of it comes back onto the surveyor, but who knows what's going on in the background. So that's why it's good to have someone like us independent. It's in between the client and the builder and the surveyor as well. And the end results are much better. Sometimes walls are way out, so even straight walls can be a big problem in the end with So it is becoming a real popular inspection, and I think it's definitely worth doing.
Yep. And I imagine there must be some, almost horror stories, but probably they're your biggest success stories where you've identified major faults with whether it's an existing property or a newly built property that if the client had bought it, then they would have essentially, been buying a complete lemon that they'd have to knock down and rebuild. Have you got some really horror stories like that where you've saved a client, either tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars or the need to completely rebuild a home where they were going to buy it no matter what, and you've come in and said we need to think twice about this?
Absolutely. On a monthly basis or even maybe weekly basis, where we find houses that are almost knocked down, sort of thing. But again, it comes back to you could still live in it for a couple of years if your intention is to live in it for a few years and knock it down. But there's some houses out there, especially the termite-ridden properties. We can find termites at the lowest part of the wall and all through the roof space. I've climbed into roofs before and I could feel it cracking underneath me, so I've just stopped and gone back out. But often besides termites, if properties are built on quite flat land and the drainage is not correct and they move around a lot, then there's always going to be some problems there, and forever they're dealing with problems. Also, new construction, a lot of things like box gutters and flat roofs, if they haven't got enough pitch in them, the box gutters aren't the right size. They become real problematic because on these big downpours that we get these days, the water, if the gutters aren't done correctly, then the water comes inside the house. So yeah, we get a lot of feedback from clients either thanking us for not buying a lemon, or more so it's more the case that they've still purchased the property, but they've got $5,000, $10,000, $30,000 off because we've identified these defects and they've renegotiated. So it's more that's probably the more common story. I mean, everything can be fixed. Every house has got defects. There's not a house that I've inspected that's been perfect. So it's more, the more common thing is you're getting a bit of a reduction on their initial offer.
Oh, well, it certainly empowers the client, doesn't it? You're informing them, so they're making the purchase fully informed. If there are defects, this is essentially a rough ballpark figure of what it's going to cost you, or they can go and do their own quotes of what it's going to cost, and then, as you said, negotiate a slightly cheaper purchase price, which is a win for them, and they go into it fully informed with their eyes wide open, which is really important.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's all. I mean, that's going into a lot of the inspections that you do for purchases and new constructions, but you also do a few other inspections, don't you? I believe so, like dilapidation, asbestos, mold inspections for existing houses. And would that be for, I don't know, say if I owned a really old place and I was worried there's asbestos in the roof and we wanted to do a reno, we'd call you and your team would come in and have a look?
Absolutely. As part of our pre-purchase, just standard building and pest inspections, if we see asbestos, or legally we have to say suspected asbestos in a property, anything sort of pre-80s or sort of pre-90s, we mark out all the areas in our report just to say suspected asbestos. It's highly advised to get it further tested. But yeah, absolutely. Like, besides that, if somebody's doing a bathroom renovation, it's always, we get a lot of calls for come and doing some testing, or find out. Some people don't want asbestos at all in the property, so it's testing the eaves, in behind tiles, old sheds, old fences. So yeah, asbestos is quite a big part of our inspection process, and it's probably the most common question we get, and it's also probably the defect in the report that can scare people a bit. So it's kind of, again, explaining that to them, what asbestos it was used for, and if it's left alone and encapsulated, then it's all safe. But yeah, I suppose the other sort of inspections we do is mold. I'm licensed in mold inspections, so yeah, especially during the winter months, I go out to a lot of properties and do mold sampling. With the mold, it's pretty interesting. A lot of the time, people think it's a building defect or there's a water leak that's creating the mold, and it's often the way people are sort of living, I guess, locking their homes up, and I sort of educate them a little bit on using extraction fans and dehumidifiers and running their split system. A lot of people don't realise their split system, standard split system, can dehumidify a house as well. They've all got a dehumidifier setting on them. So there's a lot of education around mould and condensation. But yeah, so do a lot of that. A couple of our guys do the pool inspections, so we can get those done. I used to, and I'm still licensed in, I don't do a lot of it, is methamphetamine testing on properties. So that was, because I was sort of trained in it, if I suspect drug use in a property, or meth cooking, there's a few telltale signs.
Right.
Then I'd go back to the client and go, hey, you want me to do some tests on the property? And they're just kind of like a swab test, like your COVID test, basically. You swab the wall and you get put in a little dropper, and you can sort of do the test that way. So
Be an interesting one to come across if you're about to purchase a new property and it's been a little drug lab under, in your
Yeah,
basement.
absolutely. I have found a few drug labs. I've found a few little grow houses in roof spaces and in
Right.
subfloors. So
Wow.
come across it all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I suppose with the meth sort of side of things, it's only if I suspect there's been some drug use in the property.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, and dilapidation surveys, they're quite popular as well. Especially, we work pretty closely with a couple of volume builders that get us out there and sort of do the neighbouring properties and the driveways and the council assets. And they're sort of using guys like us now, just from that independent perspective. So yeah, they're quite, and they're actually getting more popular as well because
Yeah.
builders. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, sort of cover it all. And if we can't, if there's something we don't do, don't inspect, we've got a good network of guys as well, so who we refer work onto and all the rest of it. None of our guys are trained to do, and myself included, are trained to do VCAT ready reports. The big reports that can end up in VCAT. So, but we've got a couple of good guys who do a lot of these reports. So, but yeah, if we can't do something, we've always got a network that we can refer onto.
Yeah. Yeah, brilliant. Well, mate, sounds like you have a very thorough range of services that you offer when it comes to inspecting properties. If anyone is, that's watching, does want to get in contact with you guys, what's the best way that they can do that? Where can they find you?
Just Google us. 8 Point Building Inspections is the best way to go. It's got all our details on there. It's got Brooke's number there to give her a call. It's got an online sort of form you can fill out. But yeah, that's the best place to go. And we're on Instagram and Facebook now, which is quite new for us in the social media sort of scheme of things. But yeah, we're on all the avenues now, so you should be able to find us pretty easy if you just chuck in 8 Point Building
We seeing
Inspections.
you on TikTok at all, or
I haven't done TikTok. I don't think I'll be on TikTok. I think Instagram and Facebook's enough for me, but you never know.
yeah?
We might get there one day.
Nah, fair enough.
I think I'm a bit old for that.
Yeah, I've tried TikTok, but I'm not doing a good job at it, so I think I'm going to sack it myself.
I'll,
But
yeah.
mate, that's awesome. Been really, really good to chat to you. A lot of great information there, and I think for anyone that's watching and listening, if they are ever thinking of getting a building and pest inspection, would highly recommend it, particularly for new purchasers, which is I guess the world that I'm in. But also if they've got any doubts around any compromises to their property around mold, asbestos, and things like that, to reach out and give you guys a call
Absolutely.
and find you via the website. So really appreciate the chat today,
Yeah.
and all the best for a big
Good on you,
2025.
Michael. You too, buddy.